Welcome everybody back to the Den25 Show. We are back with your guys here, Matt, me, Adam, and Jay Deep, with a hidden inner Jeep.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been going on for about decades. Some people will tell you it's going on for 1,500 years. We're gonna keep it to when Israel was actually established as a state. The media kind of portray this as like a very complicated situation that is hard to explain, has a lot of history, geopolitical history behind it. So recently, what happened? That kind of started the whole surge of tensions this year. The Israeli Supreme Court, the homes of Palestinian families are being threatened for eviction, because basically what happened is, I believe in around the 1970s, Jewish settlers, they claim to have jurisdiction over these areas because they claim it was transferred over to them. It's not just those families that could be threatened for eviction, but it could also be many other households that hold Palestinian families that they could be evicted as well, right? The Israeli government agreed that they would postpone the case by about 14 days. But that only happened because you had a lot of protesters and even rioters that were very upset over this case because, many people, their own people, could be evicted from their homes. We all know that Israel has like a history of threatening to evict Palestinian families, especially in Sheikh Jarrah. I hope I'm saying that right. Adam, am I saying that right?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Give me that, right? Yeah. Okay, just give me that. All right. But apparently, since at least 2002, that area near Jerusalem specifically has been threatened for eviction. Hundreds of people were protesting in a mosque. I believe on one of the holy days in the Muslim religion. Am I right? Am I correct with that, Adam? I believe
it's a whole month. It's a whole month.
It was a whole month, or I believe it was like the last Friday of something.
Was it Ramadan?
Yeah, it was during Ramadan. I just don't remember what day specifically it was.
I believe it was like the last Friday of Ramadan, where hundreds of people in this mosque were tear gassed. Hundreds of people were injured while they were celebrating and protesting. All right, peaceful protesting, in fact. Hamas, which is this terrorist organization that kind of spurred out of this hatred of the Israeli state because of everything that they've done. They sent over hundreds of these very small like rockets over Israel, right? Israel's Iron Dome like defense system, pretty much just almost all of them were evaded. I believe there was only like 3 to 4 casualties, or like something in like the single digit casualties from that specifically on the Israeli side. They have the 4th largest military in the world, right? Or as of yesterday, they started bombing the Gaza Strip. And the injuries on the Palestinian side have reached over 500 at this point. And the deaths have gotten to over 100. Including tens of Palestinian children.
Joe Biden responded by sending out a tweet in which he stated that Israel has the right to defend itself.
So it's basically sucking Netanyahu off, which is expected.
Okay, Adam, do you want to go first, or can I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, some fucking thing that pissed me the fuck off about this Israel-Palestine crisis is that Israel themselves made Hamas. Like the whole shit. They funded Hamas, which is a far-right extremist sect of Islam, and they funded them when it was Hamas versus whatever the Palestinian establishment that it was, and they funded Hamas and got Hamas as big as they are. So basically, you funded your local crackhead, and now that crackhead's fucking you over, and now you're pissed off about it. Like, you made this issue. Now, I'm not rating the sect of Islam to like a fucking crackhead or like how like discussing anything, but it's like you made this problem. And now you're complaining about it. And these guys are reacting to the fact that you're evicting and you're occupying other people and you're harming just Palestinians are just trying to live their fucking lives, and you're kicking them out of their houses and forcing them into these like inhumane, like you're not treating them as humans, basically.
Yeah.
You're treating them like they're fucking like beneath your feet. Like it's fucking disgusting.
Slightly ironic because that country is backed by another country, America, that funded its own terrorist group a long time ago.
Oh yeah, fuck, takes one to know one. Like goddamn.
If they would have done that to like say the Vatican, what would have been the international response?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Oh, and also during Christmas.
During
Christmas too.
I saw what people on Twitter say is that their perspective on this is that Israel created Hamas as like almost like a point of blame. If Hamas does something to you or does something to Israel, they blame that on Hamas as well as the entirety of Palestine itself.
Yeah.
Has that been confirmed that they were funded by Israel?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's history. That's history right there. That's confirmed history.
Honestly, I think like that detail doesn't really matter. I think what matters more is that since, Matt said, since we're looking at this since 48, which is when Israel was founded, in the very beginning, because obviously Palestine was a British colony, and then they left it after World War II, because that's where all the Jewish refugees were going because they couldn't find anywhere else or any other country that wanted to take them in. They were being turned away everywhere, which is inhumane in of itself. So then what Britain does is that it says, okay, because obviously there's still native Palestinians living there, and then you've got the Israelis who want to found their own state there. So say Britain says, okay, we'll give the Palestinians half and we'll give the Israelis half. Palestinians obviously were against this, and the Israelis were also against this, because both of these people want like the majority, if not all of the country to themselves or the region. But nevertheless, they compromised, and that's how you got Israel and Palestine. Now look at the map today, and you'll see how much space of Palestine that Israel takes up. And then you'll see, like Matt said, the West Bank is basically like the last bastion of that original Palestinian region. And another thing about Hamas is that ever since when Matt brought up the 70s, that was in 1974, after the Yom Kippur War between Egypt and allies and Israel against Israel and the US. In which Israel gained some part of the Sinai Peninsula. Israel gained even more land of the original Palestinian, colony or segment cut off by the British. And the acting Palestinian government, which signed that treaty, was Hamas. That's the first time they were considered like the Palestinian body of power. They did it on behalf of the Palestinian government. So there you go. So I think that's the reason why people, especially Palestinians, are upset about that, is that it keeps their rightful space is being degraded ever so slightly, and you can't criticize it. You can't criticize anything because it then just be called anti-Semitic, which is a punishable crime in Europe. You can go to jail for being anti-Semitic.
I have a quick question for you, Adam. Is it kind of because I know Matt talked about Hamas being a far right extremist group. Do Muslims and Palestinians all kind of unanimously agree that is their governmental body, that they represent the Palestinian people?
Well, I don't know anybody Palestinian. I do have some immigrated friends, but they're not originally from there. But their parents, some of them, like, they're diehard Hamas supporters, and the other ones are like, okay, that's just a dictatorship, and they acknowledge the fact that it was founded by Israel. So if you want my opinion, I honestly think that it's the actual elected government. Because I keep making air quotes because you never know, you'll never know whether something. For all I know, the Palestinian shadow government run by the British since 48.
And to add some context, I believe Hamas they have jurisdiction over the Gaza Strip, while the actual Palestinian authority government, they control more of the West Bank, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is that's actually what a lot of people don't know about this, is that the Palestinian government and Hamas, they are two different entities controlling, or I'm sure there's some overlap, but they're basically contrling two different sectors.
Whoever has the missiles gets to control things, right?
Whoever has the bigger stick.
It's exactly the same thing that happened in Afghanistan and the Taliban or Al Qaeda, whichever one that is. You've got the actual Afghan government, and then you've got Taliban or Al Qaeda.
I see. Yeah.
And whoever has the biggest stick gets to call the shots, basically. It's my biggest issue with the whole situation is people who are denying the plight of Palestinians and then just blaming Hamas for that.
I've been following because I trusted that you guys would follow a lot more of the liberal leaning news sources and kind of getting their opinions. I kind of just wanted to see what the conservatives were saying about this, and those who supported Israel. And it seems to me that a lot of them were focusing more on the attacking side, where it was if Hamas can throw missiles, it doesn't matter if there was humanitarian things, those could have been solved diplomatically, right? It was Hamas that fired and declared war, in essence.
Well,
And
honestly, I
so
think the
Israel's defending itself.
honestly think like the basic conservative mentality about this is that they don't support Israel because it's the US's ally. I think it's more of a religious standpoint. It's because basically in the Jewish and Christian religions, when the Jews control all of Israel, Jesus is going to come back because they don't believe that he was actually crucified. They believe that he went back up to God, and the Christians believe that Jesus was crucified but then resurrected and went back up to God. Here's where it gets interesting: is that when Jesus comes back, the Jews believe that Jesus is going to help them kill off all the Christians and Muslims, and then the Christians think that when Jesus comes down, he's going to help them kill all the Jews and Muslims. So basically, it's
basically they're going to kill all the Muslims.
The Christians want that to happen so that they can see their prophecy come true, and that's why they support the Jews, because they know that in the end, like if it happens, like hey, you're gonna die anyway.
Yeah, so there's like a shared heritage thing going on here.
Okay,
right?
Bro, like honestly, Palestine is like the birthplace of all three Abrahamic religions, so you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
But like what I don't understand about this whole situation like fully is like that's not very like following of your religion that your daddy's son is going to come back down and wave his big stick and kill everyone you don't like. Like, what is this? Like, Jesus is going to come down and exterminate all your foes. Like, what is this bullshit? Like, wasn't he the one that's like, I'd rather be with the lecher and the prostitute than the person on top of the hill and the rich? Like, what is this? This is not the same person. This doesn't make sense.
It's a God with multiple personality disorder. Now,
multiple personality disorder, and the disorder just depends on what you want your narrative to be.
Again, for those watching, we are not making a complete stance, but we're also not going to ignore some of the humanitarian issues that do occur and some of the military issues that also have occurred.
Like you can talk about something, you can bring light to a subject without taking a stance. This isn't Black Lives Matter. Like if you post the black square, if you post infographics on like Instagram, like you're bringing light. You're not taking a stance unless you explicitly state, okay, I'm Team Palestine or I'm Team Israel.
One thing I really don't like is like other like Jewish people that we just know that are getting attacked, like just regular people in America that are just Jewish getting attacked for like Israel. Like, bro, like they have nothing to do with it unless they're a Zionist, like full hardcore, like fuck Palestine to everyone that lives there. Like those people do not deserve to be harassed for any such reason. It's not their fault that Israel is doing these things. And they have like really no correlation with what fucking Netanyahu decides to fucking do. All right.
And that's kind of like the overarching theme and how it's affecting us, like Americans, right? It's our citizens are feeling the brunt of it through harassment and through all of this other bullshit that's happening to them. So,
I will say, and guys, Mark did mention, go by the statistics, go by the facts. That's why if you want to, stay neutral on this and look at the facts, and look at the statistics, what I want you to do, and not a lot of people looking at this conflict do this, I want you to compare both sides and compare the death tolls, compare the injuries, all right, and compare the militaries, all right, because
compare the military.
No matter what you can say about this, there is a side that is much more powerful, right, and has more powerful people on their side, okay, because Israel has the backing of the United States, and we give them millions of dollars every year in aid that a lot of it goes directly to the IDF, which they use on Palestinians
to extort the Palestinians. And that money, that's money just from the government. We're not talking about all of like the high ranking, because I'm going to make this quick because like we need to talk about other stuff. So basically in Israel, IDF service is required.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory, and then it's not mandatory just for people living in Israel. It's mandatory for all Jewish people who have an Israeli citizenship. So all high-ranking Jewish diplomats here in the U.S. like they don't want to see their kids go fight in the
see.
IDF. So then obviously that's even more funding there. And I think that makes up like it's a 75%. 75% comes from the US government, then 25% comes privately. And now people might be saying, oh, 25% only a fourth, man. But like
what the US
when we're look at the amount of money, like if you like, I think we would all be set for life if we had 25% of Jeff Bezos' net worth.